Lehman Brothers holding a conference call right now. David Faber, bring him into the conversation on the troubled brokerage. You know Fold.
Yes, I do.
Him,
yes, I do.
Probably not so long ago. You probably
no. I was with him not that long ago. It was a background conversations, just one of those things. But yeah.
What's your take on what's happening today? Disappointing? What you figured? To the market. Disappointing to the market? What the market figured?
I think that'll be the key. Is ultimately what we see. Interesting to note, of course, Fold is on the conference call to begin with, because anybody who's listened to a Lehman conference call these last few years, and certainly this last year during all the tumult, he has not been.
Aaron Callan was.
Aaron Callan, and then the CFO. So he finally made the decision to get on the call. Some would say perhaps a bit too late. A lot of things perhaps a bit too late here for Lehman in terms of owning up to some of the real estate issues, or at least adhering to the reality of the marketplace. And those are the questions. Why didn't they act sooner when they could have, in terms of raising a lot more capital and perhaps providing more transparency and writing down some of these assets? But at this point, they have to act, obviously, because the credit default swaps blew out so much yesterday.
Again today. 41
and that's
more
a key for them. They have ample liquidity. They have access to the discount window. But their question that I was getting yesterday, and a lot of people, and you can talk to this, Bill, is if you were doing business with Lehman, if you're going to put on a long-term trade, are you going to do it, or are you going to do it with somebody else? It's that franchise value. Would they become a dead man walking, in a sense? Ample liquidity, but no real business going on.
I guess I'm somewhat. I don't really want to pick on Lehman. I think they're in sort of a tough spot. I'd rather speak generally. I think a lot of the services performed by investment banks are commodity services. Some of them are not. But if they're commodity services, you want to make sure you're dealing with a credit-worthy counterparty. Yep. You're not going to you don't want to save a few basis points and deal with the counterparty that might fail.
Now, at this point, they're going with the bad bank, good bank, which we've been talking about for quite some time. They're going to spin off these real estate assets. I was hearing it might have a book value, this company, of as much as $16 a share. I don't know that they've shared that yet on the conference call.
The spin-off company?
That's what I was hearing.
The total book value they had at 27.
Yeah.
Right?
So how are they going to capitalize that company? Of course, they're going to have to contribute equity to that company, and they're in the midst of trying to raise capital. So Lehman still has that big overhang of, we got to raise the capital, then we can spin this company off with some capital.
Actually, I read the press release quickly. I think they're also going to provide debt to the entity. So
right.
Really, you're giving a shareholder who owns Lehman two pieces of paper, but you're still somewhat in the same place. Now, I think the goal would be make Lehman a clean enough entity that people feel comfortable putting capital into it. So that's
comfortable doing business with it. Comfortable in all different ways.
That's right.
The
problem is it's okay to put equity in it and spin it off, but if you put debt into the entity, you have to make sure that the assets more than cover the debt. Otherwise, people are going to be concerned that you still have the exposure.
Mm-hmm. Spillover. Everything you've been saying seems to hint that it could be self-contained, right? That it's about people's relationship with Lehman.
Absolutely. And by the way, people are still doing business with Lehman. They're still, talk to everybody. Everybody's taking them as counterparty. Again, ample liquidity, access to the discount window. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not to bring up the name bear stearns. It's not. It's a different situation. But I think that the Fannie Freddie, essentially evisceration of the equity there, certainly gave people who are also holders of Lehman a pause. That may have been played into it yesterday. Because when you look at yesterday and what happened, it was really unprecedented. 45%. Loss, yeah. They were no longer talking to the Koreans, but plenty of people expected they wouldn't be able to raise the money from the Korean Development Bank to begin with.
We sat here at 10:30, the two of us, on Monday, when the market was up 300 points and Lehman turned south, remember?
Yes, I do.
And it ended down 2 that day, and then yesterday, or at least traded down 2 that day, and then yesterday just everything hit the fan.
So at the end of the day, I think it does come down to the stock price. We'll see what it does this morning. Can he generate enough confidence? The investment management division sale, I've been hearing the same things that have also been reported by others. Hellman and Friedman, certainly a LBO firm out in the West Coast, KKR having an interest, not as a sponsored deal, but actually to add to their own holding company, if you will, an asset management division. But we'll see if the numbers are enough. They say in the press release $3 billion is what they would expect potentially to raise from a sale of a book value benefit for the sale of the investment management division, or a significant majority stake in that division. Again, a lot on the come here. They had to move things up. The key yesterday was, again, that time was wasting, that obviously the Korean Development Bank was no longer going to be there. So were they going to be able to get anything in place prior to their expected earnings release next Thursday? They had to move that up in part to try to engender some confidence in the markets, particularly when your credit default swaps are blowing out the way they are, and it's becoming very expensive for you to borrow money.
It's upticking a little bit, David, as we're talking here. 840, now 833 to 835. Big percentage gain.
Yeah.
But it's from 7. That's the good news. Bad news is it's from 7 3/4.